June 1972. Gaddafi and the IRA ceasefire. In June 1972, Bruce Springsteen signed a record deal with Columbia Records. The boss is famous for many of his hit songs, but one that rings true for me today is Badlands. The opening lyrics are quite apt. Well, lights out tonight, trouble in the heartland. Got a head-on collision. Smashing in my guts, man. I'm caught in a crossfire that I don't understand. Political developments in June 1972. June 1972 in Northern Ireland began with a paper being presented at the Northern Ireland office, Chequers Conference. The following points were covered. The Attorney General introduced his paper, The Legal Picture in Northern Ireland, and outlined its conclusions. Outlining that of persons brought to court for terrorist offences, the acquittal rate of disputed cases is 40%, the same as the general acquittal rate in Great Britain. He also stated that the Lord Chief Justice's decision that any statement made by an accused after a period of interrogation at a police holding centre would not be admissible, which would result in the discharge of McDermott, who is accused of the murder of Sergeant Willett. It was noted that the Attorney General has arranged for the Director of Public Prosecutions to inform the police of the pending discharge of such persons, and that the Attorney General's office will inform the Northern Ireland office. In a discussion about the case of McKee, an alleged dangerous member of the IRA at present awaiting trial, the Secretary of State said that he did not rule out the possibility of detaining him in the same way as McDermott, and, if necessary, he would do so based on reviewing his case after a set period. He would also, again, want his reasons for the detention widely publicised. In a general discussion about special courts, there was agreement with the views of the Attorney General and the Lord Chief Justice that there is no immediate need for such a court in Northern Ireland. The Attorney General outlined the difficulties in respect of cases now pending before the European Commission on Human Rights. In a discussion about who should appoint and remove county court judges, at present the Ministry of Home Affairs, it was agreed to hold talks between the Secretary of State, the Lord Chancellor, the Lord Chief Justice, and the Attorney General. The Secretary of State agreed that provision should be made for county courts to exercise criminal jurisdiction during July and August. The Secretary of State said that the RUC should be pressed to produce their report on the cases of alleged brutalities submitted by the Irish Embassy. The Secretary of State said that he was unconvinced by arguments against the closing of Holywood Detention Centre. Following from this, there was a general discussion on interrogation techniques, and Mr. Woodfield explained that, since internment, interrogation techniques have aimed more at obtaining intelligence than getting successful prosecutions. There is now a need to change the order of priority. The Secretary of State invited the Attorney General to note the points raised in the discussion and to circulate his paper, with any necessary revisions, to General 79. On the 11th of June, Libyan leader Colonel Gaddafi announced that he had supplied arms to revolutionaries in Ireland. On Libyan radio, Gaddafi said, "We support the revolutionaries of Ireland who oppose Britain and who are motivated by nationalism and religion. There are arms and there is support for the revolutionaries of Ireland. We have decided to create a problem for Britain and to drive a thorn in her side so as to make life difficult. She will pay dearly." Stormont Castle was usually the location for the Secretary of State's daily meeting, where they would discuss recent events and upcoming developments. During one such meeting on the 12th of June, they covered 4 points, including violence over the previous weekend and the general situation in Northern Ireland. However, 2 key items of discussion were negotiations with the UDA and the hunger strikes. The Bishop of Down and Connor had reported on contacts with anonymous high-ranking officials of the UDA who were believed anxious to find a way out of their commitment to erect permanent barricades next weekend. These leaders apparently did not advocate a full-scale army assault on the Londonderry no-go areas, but asked for a definitive proposal for firm action sufficient to placate their extremists. In response, the Secretary of State had transmitted a message through the bishop to the UDA representative, urging them not to play the IRA game and indicating that their understandable sense of frustration would be given sympathetic notice in his speech later in the day at Westminster. The Secretary of State agreed to meet UDA leaders the following day, Tuesday the 13th of June, and it was also agreed that there should be an earlier meeting with Mr. Craig. The Secretary of State reaffirmed the earlier decision that no further concessions are to be made to hunger strikers. There was a discussion about the wisdom of appointing an independent doctor to examine strikers. While this was agreed in principle, Mr. Howard Drake and Mr. Buchanan were to consider such an appointment in further detail, and in particular the question of selecting the right person. A major political development took place the next day when the IRA invited the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, William Whitelaw, to meet them in Free Derry. Whitelaw rejected the offer and reaffirmed in a statement the British government's policy not to let part of the United Kingdom default from the rule of law. The offer allowed the SDLP to try to arrange talks between the IRA and the British government. Subsequently, John Hume and Paddy Devlin, both members of the Social Democratic and Labour Party, held a meeting with representatives of the Irish Republican Army in Derry. At that meeting, the IRA representatives outlined their conditions for talks with the British government. The conditions were that there should be no restriction on who represented the IRA. There should be an independent witness at the meeting. The meeting should not be held at Stormont. Political status should be granted to Republican prisoners. Following the talks with the IRA, representatives of the SDLP met William Whitelaw in London and presented the IRA conditions for a meeting. Whitelaw accepted the proposals. The SDLP held a further meeting with Whitelaw on the 19th of June, where they discussed a current hunger strike that was taking place at Crumlin Road Jail. It was during this meeting that Whitelaw conceded special category status or political status for paramilitary prisoners. The next step in the negotiations between the IRA and the government came on the 20th of June, when a secret meeting between representatives of the Provisional IRA and officials from William Whitelaw's office. The meeting took place at 3 p.m. in a country house in Ballyarnett, close to the Derry and Donegal border. The Provisional IRA representatives were David O'Connell and Jerry Adams. The officials acting on behalf of William Whitelaw were P.J. Woodfield and Frank Steele, who at the time was an MI6 intelligence officer. Public records released on the 1st of January 2003 note the discussions that took place during the secret meeting. The meeting laid the groundwork for a PIRA ceasefire and a direct secret meeting between the PIRA and the British government on the 7th of July 1972. Following the secret meeting, the IRA announced that it would call a ceasefire from the 26th of June, provided that there is a reciprocal response from the security forces. The IRA began a bilateral truce at midnight on that date. On the other side of the conflict, the UDA began to organize its own no-go areas, urban areas which were entirely controlled by the group and blocked off by barricades, on the 30th of June. UDA members stopped and questioned people at these barricades, and a number of them were killed, usually when they were found to be Catholic. This was seen as a response to the continuation of Republican no-go areas and fears about concessions to the IRA. Shootings in June 1972. In terms of shootings that occurred, unfortunately, even with the hope of a ceasefire, things followed at a similar level to what we had seen during the months that preceded, with over 20 shootings during the month. June 4th. The UVF shot dead a Catholic civilian, Gerard Murray, 26, at his shop on Annesley Street, Belfast. June 6th. 2 British Army soldiers were killed in separate IRA sniper attacks in Belfast. George Lee, 22, was shot by a sniper while on foot patrol at Ballymurphy Parade, Ballymurphy, Belfast. Charles Coleman, 29, was shot by a sniper while on mobile patrol in Tullymore Gardens, Andersonstown, Belfast. June 8th. A UDR soldier on mobile patrol, Edward Megahay, 44, died 3 days after being shot by an IRA sniper on Bunkrana Road, Derry. June 9th. An off-duty UDR soldier, Roy Stanton, 27, was shot dead as he left his workplace, Autolite Factory, Finagi Road North, Belfast. June 10th. The UDA carried out a drive-by shooting on a group of Catholic teenagers in Belfast. A Catholic civilian, Marion Brown, 17, was killed and several others wounded as they stood on the corner of Roden Street and Grosvenor Road. The British Army were on patrol when they exchanged shots with a gunman in the car, who was wielding a Thompson submachine gun. June 11th. The UDA shot dead a Catholic civilian, John Madden, 43, as he swept the footpath outside his shop on Old Park Road, Belfast. June 11th. An IRA Youth Section volunteer, Joseph Campbell, 16, was shot dead during a gun battle at Eskdale Gardens, Ardoyne, Belfast. June 11th. A Protestant civilian, Norman McGrath, 18, was shot by a passing British Army armoured personnel carrier as he walked along Alloa Street, Lower Old Park, Belfast. June 11th. A British soldier, Peter Raystrick, 18, was shot dead by an IRA sniper while at the Brook Park British Army Base, Derry. June 12th. A British Army soldier, Alan Giles, 24, was shot dead by the IRA during a gun battle in the Ardoyne area of Belfast. June 16th. John Johnson, 59, who had been shot twice on Bloody Sunday, 30th of January 1972, died. His family was convinced that he died prematurely and that his death was a result of the injuries he received and the trauma he underwent on that day. June 19th. Desmond Mackin, 37, a Catholic civilian, was shot dead by the Provisional IRA in the Cracked Cup Social Club, Leeson Street, Lower Falls, Belfast. Mackin was involved in an altercation with Provisional IRA members, part of a feud between the official IRA and the Provisionals. June 19th. A British soldier, Brian Sodden, 21, was shot dead by an IRA sniper while on mobile patrol at Brompton Park, Ardoyne, Belfast. June 21st. A British soldier, Kerry McCarthy, 19, was shot dead while on sentry duty outside Victoria Royal Ulster Constabulary, British Army Base, Derry. June 22nd. At approximately noon, 4 men were shot and injured in the Glen Road area of West Belfast. June 23rd. The UVF carried out a drive-by shooting on a group of Catholics standing outside a bank at the corner of Antrim Road and Atlantic Avenue, Belfast. One Catholic civilian, Patrick McCullough, 17, was killed and another wounded. C. June 24th. A UDA paramilitary, John Brown, 29, was found shot near his home, Black Mountain Parade, Spring Martin, Belfast. He had been killed in an internal Ulster Defence Association dispute. June 26th. The IRA killed 2 British Army soldiers, James Meredith, 20, and Malcolm Banks, 30, in separate attacks during the day. June 26th. UDA volunteer, John Black, 32, was shot by the British Army at a barricade in Douglas Street, off Beersbridge Road, Belfast, during street disturbances. He died 5 weeks later. June 27th. A civilian, Bernard Norney, 38, was shot dead by the IRA after attempting to drive through one of their vehicle checkpoints. June 27th. UDA volunteer William Galloway, 18, was shot dead by an unknown Republican group in Edlingham Street, Tigers Bay, Belfast, during street disturbances. Bombings in June 1972. As if over 20 shootings weren't enough devastation, there was also a further 5 bombing incidents to report on in June. June 2nd. 2 British Army soldiers, Victor Husband, 23, and Brian Robertson, 23, were killed by an IRA landmine attack on their foot patrol, Derry Volan, near Rosslea, County Fermanagh. June 8th. Inspector Samuel Donegan, a member of the Garda Síochána, was killed on the County Cavan side of the cross-border Drumbona Road, near the village of Red Hills, by a roadside IRA bomb on the border with County Fermanagh. The bomb exploded very near the South Fermanagh hamlet of Wattlebridge. June 17th. The IRA exploded a 150 to 200-pound car bomb outside the Woodvale Arms public house at the end of the Shankill Road, Belfast. 18 people were injured in the blast, despite a 20-minute warning. June 18th. 3 British soldiers, Arthur Macmillan, 37, Ian Much, 31, and Colin Leslie, 26, were killed in an IRA booby-trap bomb attack. The bomb had been left in a derelict house in Bleary, County Armagh. June 24th. A bomb and gun attack occurred in the early morning of the 24th of June in the village of Crabarchy, along the main A6 Belfast to Derry Road, just outside Dungiven. An Army Land Rover was escorting a lorry that was transporting a crippled helicopter, damaged in a crash landing, toward RAF Aldergrove in County Antrim. IRA volunteers detonated a 120-pound, 54-kilogram bomb hidden in 2 milk churns as the convoy passed, catching 7 soldiers in the blast, killing 3 and injuring 4 of them. Immediately after the blast, the IRA opened fire on the lorry that had been following the Land Rover, and 3 more soldiers, including a helicopter pilot, were injured. The 3 soldiers killed in the blast were Lance Corporal David Moon, 24, of No. 664 Squadron AAC, Private Christopher Stevenson, 24, of the Parachute Regiment, and Sergeant Stuart Reid, 28, of the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. Malachy Bernard O'Kane, a farmer, was convicted of the attack and was ordered to serve at least 25 years of a life term. O'Kane was later released from prison and unsuccessfully ran as a Sinn Féin candidate for Parliament in the 1997 general election. Thanks for listening to this episode of Tales of the Troubles. If you enjoyed this episode or any others, please like or comment to help the algorithm reach other like-minded people. To ensure you never miss an episode, please click the follow button and enable notifications. If you have family or friends who would also like this podcast, please share. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we take a closer look at July 1972.